What would you do if you discovered the future of the world was revealed over 2,700 years ago? What if you found out that every major crisis we're facing right now, moral collapse, economic instability, global wars, was already predicted by an ancient prophet? Isaiah, one of the greatest prophets in the Bible, didn't just foretell the coming of Christ. He also glimpsed apocalyptic events that, according to many scholars, are unfolding right before our eyes. Today we're diving deep into Isaiah's prophecies to understand what they reveal about the end times. We'll talk about the moral collapse of nations, the rise of a ruthless leader, global destruction, and the final battle between good and evil. But we'll also talk about hope, because Isaiah didn't just announce imminent destruction. He also revealed a new world that will emerge after the final judgment. If you want to know what's coming and prepare for what could be the greatest transformation in human history, stay until the end of this video. We'll explore Isaiah's words and see how they connect to current events. But first, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any content that'll help you unlock the mysteries of the Bible and the future of humanity. Isaiah lived roughly 700 years before Christ, during one of the most turbulent periods in Israel's history. The kingdom of Judah, where he served as a prophet, was drowning in idolatry, political corruption, and a reckless pursuit of wealth and power. The people had turned away from divine principles, adopting pagan practices and alliances with foreign nations that only deepened their moral decay. Justice was corrupted, rulers exploited the weak, and genuine spirituality had been replaced by empty rituals. This moral decline didn't escape God's notice. Isaiah was called to warn the people that judgment was coming. But Isaiah wasn't just a prophet for his time. His vision stretched beyond Judah's immediate fate and reached all the way to the end of human history. He didn't just predict the destruction of his own nation if they refused to repent. He saw the destiny of all nations. In his visions, he witnessed the rise and fall of entire empires, the world descending into chaos, and finally, the ultimate judgment that would bring about the end of days. Isaiah saw beyond his present. He saw history unfolding until the decisive moment when good and evil would clash in one final battle. His writings, preserved in the book of Isaiah, are some of the deepest and most enigmatic in the Bible. His messages weren't just local warnings. They were prophecies that would echo through generations, revealing truths that, according to many scholars, are being fulfilled today. He spoke of the Messiah's coming, who would bring redemption to the world, but he also warned of dark times when evil would multiply, nations would rot from within, and humanity would face the peak of injustice and suffering. Isaiah didn't just announce the end, he described the signs leading up to it. He spoke of a time when truth would be twisted, when good would be called evil, and evil would be praised as good. He predicted economic collapses, political crises, global wars, and, most alarming of all, the rise of a global leader who would deceive the masses and lead them to ruin. This charismatic yet merciless leader would usher the world into an unprecedented era of darkness and suffering. The most shocking part? Many of these signs are already happening. The inversion of values, the corruption of nations, the breakdown of morality, rising global tensions, and the growing centralization of power all suggest that the scenario Isaiah described might be playing out right now. And that raises a chilling question. Are we living in the last days? Could what Isaiah saw over 2 millennia ago be exactly what we're witnessing today? In this video, we'll dig deep into these prophecies, analyze what they really mean, and figure out if we're on the brink of the most critical moment in human history. You'll be able to draw your own conclusions about what's coming, and more importantly, how to prepare for it. Isaiah predicted that in the last days, there would be a radical inversion of values, a moral shift where right and wrong would be completely twisted. In Isaiah 5:20, he gives a warning that sounds terrifyingly relevant today. Woe to those who lie. Call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. What Isaiah described is a society where the most fundamental principles would be corrupted, where virtue would be mocked and what was once condemned would now be celebrated. And honestly, it sounds exactly like the world we live in now. Look, around. Society is rejecting justice, truth, and righteousness more than ever. What was once noble is now dismissed as outdated or even ridiculed. Respect for human life is fading, and practices once condemned are now defended in the name of freedom. Greed, selfishness, and the hunger for power are treated like virtues, while humility and compassion are seen as weaknesses. Corruption spreads unchecked, and those who speak truth are silenced or persecuted. Spirituality is mocked, and faith, once the foundation of civilizations, is now a constant target of scorn. But Isaiah made it clear this wouldn't just be an individual moral failure, it would be systemic. Entire governments would be corrupted, and truth would be manipulated to serve those in power. In his vision, laws would no longer reflect justice but the interests of an elite class seeking total control, exploiting the weak and crushing anyone who resisted. The prophet warned that greed would replace ethics, and rulers wouldn't care about the people, only their own wealth and dominance. So here's the big question. Is this already happening? When we see leaders twisting the truth, when corruption runs deep in every level of society, when the values that hold civilization together are being deliberately torn apart, can we say we're watching Isaiah's prophecies unfold? Just look at the world today and it's clear. The inversion of values is in full swing, and moral collapse is accelerating. And if Isaiah was right about this, then the next part of his prophecy is even more disturbing. He warned that after moral decay would come a devastating economic collapse, a time when nations would crumble, economies would implode, and desperation would grip humanity. And in that chaos, a ruthless leader would rise, one who would deceive the masses and plunge the world into darkness like never before. Could we already be seeing the early stages of this? Isaiah 24:3 paints a dark and alarming vision of the future. The earth will be completely laid waste and plundered, for the Lord has spoken this word. This isn't just a prophecy of physical destruction, it's a warning of total civilizational collapse. Isaiah describes a world where economies crash, businesses fail, and financial stability vanishes. Many interpret this as a reflection of the increasingly frequent economic crises we see today. Markets collapsing overnight, millions thrown into poverty, inequality reaching unprecedented levels. Right now, we live in a world where financial bubbles keep bursting, national debts are unsustainable, and even the most powerful nations face economic insecurity. Entire countries battle severe recessions, and trust in the global economy is eroding fast. Bank failures, mass unemployment, and runaway inflation are realities in many parts of the world. To Isaiah, this wouldn't just be a temporary crisis, it would be the prelude to something much bigger, a financial meltdown that destabilizes the entire planet. But the prophecy goes deeper. Isaiah describes a moment when, out of this chaos, a global leader would emerge, a charismatic, manipulative ruler who would take control and offer seductive solutions to the world's problems. This leader wouldn't just present himself as the answer. He'd convince the masses that he's the only hope for restoring order. But beneath the surface, his true purpose would be far darker. Isaiah suggests this leader wouldn't bring real peace. He'd lead the world into an era of unprecedented suffering. Many associate this figure with the Antichrist, described elsewhere in the Bible as the one who would rule a global system before the final judgment. He'd rise as a savior, but use his influence to enslave nations, strip away freedom, and enforce absolute authoritarian rule. His power wouldn't come through brute force alone. It would come from the desperation of people willing to trade liberty for false security. Now stop and think. Are we seeing the signs of this prophecy? The world has never been more unstable, and economic and social crises are making people increasingly dependent on authoritarian governments. Fear and uncertainty make populations vulnerable to anyone who promises safety and stability. Are we already witnessing the setup for this merciless leader's rise? Could Isaiah have predicted a time when nations would willingly hand over power to a totalitarian regime just to escape chaos? And if this prophecy is unfolding now, what comes next? According to Isaiah, the next event would be a period of global wars and conflicts unlike anything the world has ever seen, a spiral of destruction that would shake the foundations of civilization. This would be the spark for the greatest battle in human history. Isaiah 17:12-14 gives a terrifying prophetic glimpse into the future of nations. The nations roar like the roaring of many waters, but he will rebuke them, and they will flee far away. At evening time, behold, terror. Before morning, they are no more. Isaiah describes a world on the brink of collapse. where peace is a distant memory and tensions between nations escalate to the point of no return. This roaring isn't just the sound of desperate voices, it's the thunder of war, terror, and anarchy spreading across the planet. Look at the world today, and this prophecy feels eerily accurate. Conflicts that were once isolated now multiply worldwide. Nations that were allies now turn against each other. The fear of global war grows as powerful leaders make explicit threats, and international tensions reach alarming levels. The specter of nuclear war, which seemed like a Cold War relic, is back in the spotlight as nations stockpile destructive weapons like never before. Isaiah seems to describe a world where political and territorial disputes explode, where countries fight for power, influence, and control, and where fear dominates daily life. But Isaiah didn't just talk about wars between nations. He also warned of something even more destructive: civil wars. In Isaiah 19:2, he declares, "I will stir up Egyptian against Egyptian. Brother will fight against brother, neighbor against neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom." Here, he paints a picture of internal division, where once united, people turn on each other, plunging their own nations into absolute chaos. What does this remind us of? Uncontrollable uprisings, governments toppling one after another, countries consumed by civil war, and societies torn apart by extreme polarization. Isaiah's prophecy isn't just about human decisions. It suggests these conflicts are part of a bigger plan. According to him, wars and divisions aren't just natural consequences of politics and economics. They're signs that the world is moving towards something far greater, the final showdown between good and evil. These conflicts are like thunder before the storm, a warning that the ultimate battle is coming, an event that will change humanity's fate forever. But Isaiah doesn't leave us with only doom. He also speaks of hope, a promise that will emerge from the chaos. Yes, there will be wars. Yes, there will be suffering. But after this darkness, something extraordinary will happen: the Messiah's return and the world's restoration. Isaiah foresees a time when peace will reign again, when justice will be restored, and when a new government will be established, not by human hands, but by God himself. This will be the turning point in human history. But before that peace arrives, one last battle must be fought, and that's exactly what we'll talk about next. While Isaiah prophesied destruction and chaos, his visions don't end in despair. Amid warnings of divine judgment and global conflict, he also revealed a glorious promise: the Messiah's return, to restore the world and usher in a new era of peace and justice. This transformation won't just be political or social, it'll be a complete renewal of creation, where even nature's instincts are altered and human suffering finally ends. In Isaiah 11:6-9, the prophet describes an astonishing scene. World where peace reigns absolutely. The wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the goat, the infant will play near the cobra's den, and the young child will put its hand into the viper's nest. This isn't just a metaphor for peace between nations, it's a literal transformation of creation, restoring it to its original state before humanity's fall in Eden. This won't be an ordinary human government, riddled with corruption and power struggles. Isaiah describes the Messiah as the supreme and eternal ruler, one who governs not with oppression, but with wisdom, justice, and truth. In Isaiah 9:6-7, he's called the Prince of Peace, whose reign will be unshakable and bring balance to humanity. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. This passage makes it clear: the Messiah isn't just another human leader. He's a divine king whose authority is absolute and eternal. But this perfect reign won't be established without resistance. Isaiah makes it clear that the forces of evil won't surrender easily. A world used to injustice and corruption will rebel against this new order. Earthly rulers, who thrive on oppression and fear, won't give up their thrones without a fight. The enemy of humanity will make one last stand, gathering all the powers of darkness to try and stop the Messiah's kingdom. This will be the final confrontation, the ultimate battle between light and darkness, justice and wickedness. Isaiah shows us that before eternal peace, there will be war, a conflict unlike anything the world has seen, where humanity's fate will be decided. But in the end, victory is already assured. The Messiah will triumph, and with him, all who remain faithful to the truth. In the next section, we'll talk about this epic battle and the final judgment that will separate the righteous from the wicked. The most critical moment in human history is still to come. Isaiah 63, 1-6 gives us the image of a warrior Messiah, returning not just to reign, but to defeat evil once and for all. He describes a figure dressed in red, coming from Edom, with blood-stained robes. This symbolizes judgment on those who oppose God. The final battle won't just be a physical war between nations, it'll be a spiritual war. Isaiah describes it as the moment when God intervenes directly in human history, crushing those who corrupt and destroy justice. This moment will be the ultimate turning point. In Isaiah 24, 21, 22, he says the powers of earth and heaven will be shaken, meaning this war won't just affect human governments, but the spiritual forces behind them. After this battle, everything corrupted will be destroyed. Isaiah says human pride will be humbled, deception exposed, and nations that turned against God will face judgment. But for those who remain faithful, something incredible awaits, the promise of a new heaven and a new earth. After the final battle between good and evil, Isaiah describes a moment of total renewal, where all pain, suffering, and corruption will be erased forever. The prophet transports us to a future where creation is restored to its original state, free from the scars of sin and injustice. In Isaiah 65, 17, 19, he declares, "See, I will create new heavens and a new earth. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind." This isn't just a surface-level change, it's a complete rebirth of the world. Everything, tainted by evil and decay, will be wiped away. The new reality will be so glorious that the pains of the past won't even be remembered. In this new world, suffering will have no place. Isaiah describes a time when death itself will cease to exist, and those who dwell in this new creation will live in everlasting joy. The prophet paints a picture where work won't be toil but satisfaction and abundance. They will build houses and dwell in them. They will plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They will not labor in vain. Isaiah 65, 21, 23. Fear, anxiety, inequality, everything that plagues humanity today will vanish. People will reap what they sow, and peace will be the foundation of existence. This glorious future will be the reward for those who remained faithful, who didn't let themselves be deceived by the chaos of the old world. God's judgment isn't just about destruction, it's about restoration, a process where all things are made new. The purpose of divine justice isn't just to eradicate evil, it's to create a world where good can flourish without opposition, where humanity can live in harmony with God as it was meant to be. But this transformation won't just be physical. Isaiah makes it clear this renewal will also be spiritual. He speaks of a time when God will be closer to humanity than ever, where all nations will worship Him in unity and truth. No more divisions, doubts, or spiritual darkness. Every person will experience the fullness of God's presence, and the relationship between Creator and creation will be perfect and eternal. That will be the greatest blessing of the new world, the complete restoration of fellowship between God and humanity. But this promise comes with a warning. This new world won't be for everyone. Only those who are prepared and aligned with truth will enter this restored kingdom. Those who reject divine justice and cling to the corruption of the old world won't be part of it. The separation between the righteous and the wicked will be final, and there will be no second chances, which leads us to the most important question of all. What are we doing today to make sure we're part of this promised future? Now that we've explored Isaiah's prophecies, we have to ask a crucial and unsettling question. Are we living in the last days? The signs Isaiah described are unfolding before our eyes. The moral collapse of society, global economic crises, wars between nations, the inversion of fundamental values. It's all happening. Is this just another phase of human history, or are we on the verge of these prophecies' final fulfillment? If Isaiah was right, what does that mean for us today? Does it mean the end is closer than we think? Or is there still time to change humanity's course? The prophet left us both a warning and a promise. He showed that destruction is inevitable for those who reject truth and turn from justice. But he also revealed hope for those who turn to God. That hope isn't just for the future. It starts now in the choices we make every day. So here's the big question. What are we doing to prepare? If Isaiah's prophecies are being fulfilled right in front of us, we can't afford to ignore the signs. We need to stay alert, seek truth, and strengthen our faith. We need to live by the principles that secure our place in the promised new world, where justice triumphs and peace reigns forever. There's still time to make choices that align with that future, but that time may be running out fast. Isaiah teaches us that the end of the world isn't just about destruction, it's about redemption. He calls us to wake up from spiritual slumber and make our decisions now before it's too late. The time to choose isn't in some distant future, it's today. And every one of us has a role in this story. If this video made you think, don't keep this message to yourself. Share it, help spread this truth. Hit that like button so more people see it, and comment below. Do you believe we're seeing these prophecies fulfilled? What signs do you see in the world around you? Let's discuss it. And of course, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more content that helps you unlock the Bible's mysteries and understand humanity's future. The story isn't over yet, and the next chapters may be the most decisive of all. See you in the next video.